Those are our 6 main bodyweight flows. What other flows can you guys think of? These are the ones that I've noticed that are the most beneficial, that we use time and time again inside of training, that we can overload by laddering. Now let's move on to kettlebell flows, technical flows, and mobility enhancement. Again, very technical. All right. We want to practice and make sure that we got this down before we just send your competitors who maybe aren't as trained as everyone else into kettlebell flows. We want to teach them the basics of kettlebells and have them build their way up. But it builds mobility, it builds power, it builds cardio. Okay? Our kettlebell flows are going to be the very crux of a lot of brilliant workouts that we make along the way. They're very unique, right? And the ones that we do here work many different planes of motion and combine the best of static, straight ahead, or not static, but straight ahead frontal kettlebell maneuvers with positive movement patterns associated with many different sports. Okay? So we're doing high rep counts with kettlebells. Remember that, right? They're multiplanar, they're natural intervals, they mimic fight patterns. They hit all the energy systems. These are amazing. To quote Mark, kettlebells are phenomenal, are some of the best for combat sports. All right, steps to practice for perfect technique. Practice with light weight until the movement is steady instead of speedy. So practice with your lighter kettlebell, even if you're not hitting your rep counts just yet, even if that intensity isn't very high. Remember what we said is one of the pillars of base training is that your technique has to be there before we even think about overloading intensity. Practice your hand exchanges. It's going to be important for us to switch from one hand to the next a lot of the time. Whatever you do to switch, whether you just straight up put it on the ground and grab it again like you're putting down a bag of groceries in order to unlock your front door. That's the way you're going to transition for your hand exchange. Do that every time. What we're going to practice and what you can find on my YouTube channel at Coach Johan and on the websites is a good hand exchange makes transitioning from one side to the next seamless. It's actually a good practice to help keep your rep tempo really high. Practice proper breathing. There is a style of kettlebells where you sharply exhale every time you hit an end position. I must say I depreciate that type of work, but it's still extremely valid. I would go for breathing properly throughout. Exhaling, not necessarily sharply, but when you do hit an end position, exhaling. Inhaling and resting during racks. Practice a loose handle grip for number 4. When you're holding on too tight for the kettlebell, it defeats the purpose of using your kettlebells. Point blank. Okay? You want the grip to be loose but firm. Well, loose but secure. Number 5 is practice being loose on the contra-contracting body part. If I'm doing a press with my right hand, my left side is loose. So I'm hard extending, the triceps start to contract. The rotator cuffs start to contract. I got my pectoral major muscles starting to contract. Upper trapezius starts to contract. Levator scapulae. On the other side, those very muscles I just named, they start to relax. Also, their antagonists start to relax. All right? So, we're talking about latissimus dorsi and biceps. All of them start to relax on the other side. Practice that. Practice that. And it's a good time to do it with our kettlebells. Practice precision over rep count. Make sure that all of your ending positions and racks are pretty much in the same place. If you did 100 swings, they look alike. Okay, that you can chop them up into frames and each frame would be the same. Practice a tight core for number 7, a tight posture core the whole time. Keep your abs tight or you're risking injury. You're risking erratic rotation and injury. We don't need that. Okay? Especially when we're using in implements where we're doing high rep counts and that can get really heavy. You don't need it. In fact, one of the moves, a hip press, I depreciate that one too. Right? And lastly, practice natural positioning over strict movement. Hip hinging, knee kinking, and tight abdominals are paramount. Okay, so remember that those are the things that we want to be really strict: hip hinging and knee kinking and tight abs. But everything else, think about being natural. If you watch someone else do a kettlebell swing and they're really animated with their shoulders, maybe that's great for them. But think about what your body likes to do. All right? Maybe someone has externally rotated feet inside the gym when you're training with them as they're doing a one arm swing. Fine. All right? As long as they got their knees bent, their hips cocked, their abs tight, they're not going to injure themselves. Okay? Because it might be a more natural position for them. As long as there's torque, not shearing forces, we're good to go. Right?